caught up in all the hype. And if Tupac came back from the dead now to hear this interview, he would agree. They got caught.
KRS-One is breaking it down about Big Daddy Kane and Tupac's connection, and the truth flips the whole narrative on its head. People been running with the idea that Kane and Tupac were enemies, but according to KRS-One, that's straight up false. In reality, they had respect for each other, not beef. So why does it feel like the world was sold a different story? That's where Suge Knight slides into the picture. Suge was notorious for pushing drama, twisting narratives, and making sure every artist picked a side. He knew East Coast versus West Coast chaos meant headlines, record sales, and non-stop cameras flashing. But here's the kicker. Big Daddy Kane wasn't playing Suge's little game. He kept it classy, stayed in his own lane, while Tupac, on the other hand, got dragged into the storm whether he wanted to or not. KRS-One even revealed that if there was any smoke between them, it was because of manipulation, not real hatred. And get this, Death Row actually tried to pull Kane into the fold, but he turned it down. Just that one decision made him part of a messy storyline he never signed up for.
I went in the studio and did a song together, and then them little dudes,
Outlaws.
Yeah,
Outlaws.
They came, like, as soon as we got there, they came up to Pac talking about, yo, Lauryn Hill dissed you, Mobb Deep dissed you, this and that, and da. So then Pac went in the studio and started writing about, I think it might have been that, I think it was.
Behind closed doors, though, Kane and Tupac had love for each other. They had private talks, mutual respect, and even unrecorded collabs the world never got to hear. This whole saga ain't what people thought. It's deeper, it's twisted, and it's finally coming to light. Back in the mid-90s, Suge Knight wasn't just running Death Row. He was plotting to take over the whole game. His next move? Death Row East, a bold play to dominate the East Coast market. And who did Suge want as the face of this expansion? None other than Brooklyn's own lyrical heavyweight, Big Daddy Kane. Kane himself later confirmed he was offered a fat $100,000 advance and a major deal that could have flipped his career in a whole new direction. But here's where Kane shocked everybody. He turned it down. He said flat out he wasn't about to step into that messy scene. Kane wasn't naive. He knew nobody hands you that kind of money with no strings attached. He saw through it, recognized the devil's handshake when it came his way, and refused to sell out. That single decision placed Kane right in the middle of the rising East Coast-West Coast chaos, but on his own terms, as a neutral who wouldn't dance to Suge's beat.
Here's a lyricist. See what I'm saying? It's just that he's not one of those lyrical MCs that spit stuff, but his stuff is, he spit deep lyrics that touch your soul.
And make no mistake, this wasn't just about business, it was about integrity. Suge wanted to craft a rivalry to pit Kane against Tupac for headlines and blood money, but Kane wasn't buying it. KRS-One has said it over and over, Kane and Tupac never had beef. In fact, they shared mutual respect, even common ground that most rappers didn't. Sadly, while Kane dodged the trap, Tupac got pulled straight into the storm, caught in the middle of an East Coast-West Coast circus he never fully asked for. Kane always gave Tupac his flowers. Straight from the start, he recognized Tupac talent and shut down anyone calling him less of a lyricist. Kane defended him against critics who tried to say Tupac wasn't built for lyrical battles, and he stood on that. And then comes the mystery of their lost collab, an unreleased track called Wherever You Are. This song never officially dropped, but those who've heard it swear Tupac went bar for bar with Kane himself, proving he could hold his own with a living legend.
Didn't Eric B try to sign you to Death Row East at one point?
Yeah.
What happened with that?
He called and said, Suge trying to, build a Death Row East, man. I think it might be a good look for you. So I went out there, and like when I walked in, these two big-ass Rockwallers came, and then Suge, he comes out the back. They come running around, sniffing around me and stuff, sits down with his cigar, sits his cigar down and does this. And both the dogs ran and sat down next to him. So I'm like, okay, this one of them meetings. He said, well, what you want? A $400,000 advance. Why you ain't just simply say $500,000? Man, you Big Daddy Kane, man. I can't see myself signing you for less than $1 million. I gotta give you $1 million. Because you already a household name. But then he was like, well, yo, look, I don't know how you doing financially, but if you want, I can just give you $100K in the morning. That's when I knew it was time to go. I was like, you just gonna give me $100,000 with no agreement? Nah, I was like, I'll let you know tomorrow. And then I went and switched my flight to like a 6 a.m. joint.
Anyone still doubting Tupac Pen just needs to hear that track. It's proof he could spar with the best. But the real connection between Kane and Tupac went way deeper than music. Both were drawn to the teachings of the 5% Nation, also known as the Nation of Gods and Earths. This movement came out of Harlem in the 1960s and preached that black people are the original people of the planet, and that true power comes from knowing yourself. It wasn't just philosophy, it was a way of life. Kane got into it back in the 80s, and you can hear it woven through his rhymes. He laced tracks with ideas of supreme mathematics and the supreme alphabet, messages that carried weight if you understood the science, and even if you didn't, it made his bars hit harder, sharper, and smarter. Go back to joints like The Wrath of Kane. The knowledge is right there in the verses.
Bottom line is that they got caught up in all the hype. And if Tupac came back from the dead now to hear this interview, he would agree. They got caught up in the hype. And Public Enemy prophesied, don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. You know, and they got caught up. Biggie, they all got caught up, and it's a shame because we ain't supposed to go out like that.
Now when it comes to Tupac, his ties to the 5% Nation were different. He was never formally initiated, but he got exposed to the teachings back when he was in Baltimore, and through his mother, Afeni Shakur, who was a proud former Black Panther. From her, Tupac soaked up revolutionary energy, the fight for empowerment, and that spirit of self-knowledge that showed up in nearly everything he did, from fiery interviews to the lyrics that still shake the culture today. So while Kane and Tupac lived on opposite coasts, and while the industry tried to paint them as enemies, the truth is they shared the same foundation. Their worldviews lined up, and that mutual philosophy built a respect that no tabloid headline could fake. But here's where it gets wild. Suge Knight wasn't just a CEO, he was a master puppeteer. Death Row Records was exploding, and Suge knew one thing: drama sells. Nothing pushed units faster than the East Coast versus West Coast conflict, and he wasn't shy about fanning those flames. Suge's move with Kane was slick but deadly. By offering him the Death Row East deal, he was trying to drag one of New York's most respected icons into the West Coast narrative. Kane's refusal flipped the script, though. By saying no, he didn't just reject the bag. He positioned himself as an unpredictable figure in the feud. Suddenly, the media could spin Kane as neutral, which in a conflict-driven culture looked like a statement in itself. And Suge? He had a way of twisting even silence into controversy.
Right, you know, you being a respected lyricist, how you feel about the people that push the narrative and say that Tupac, he wasn't a lyricist?
Okay, but hold up. Tupac is a lyricist. See what I'm saying? It's just that he's not one of those lyrical MCs that spit stuff, but his stuff is, he spit deep lyrics that touch your soul. So I do consider Tupac a lyricist. You know what I'm saying? Even though his stuff is about substance, I do consider him a lyricist, because it's like this here. You have to be lyrical to touch someone's soul, to make someone feel like, yo, I don't know this man, but he knows my pain. You see what I'm saying? So I do consider Tupac a lyricist. I would never.
What people don't always realize is how deep the manipulation ran. Suge Knight wasn't just stirring drama between rappers. He was shaping the entire media narrative. If Kane had taken that Death Row East deal, the headlines would have written themselves, Tupac versus Kane, East versus West. It would have been another pawn in Suge's empire-building game. But by walking away, Kane unknowingly created one of the biggest what-if moments in hip-hop history. Imagine the press conferences, the staged beef, the rumors, all the mess Suge could have manufactured with Kane and Tupac names tied together. Instead, Kane's refusal left a hole in Suge's plan, and that's when the industry started whispering, spinning stories that Kane secretly didn't rock with Tupac.
Mathematics, you know, the 5% thing, you was kind of heavy in that, the knowledge itself. That was really woven into your rhymes when you first took off. When did you get introduced to that? Were you a 5%er or was you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I believe that I was introduced. I want to say 81, 82, somewhere around there.
With this knowledge itself and knowing who you are, when you came in the game and during that era, man, knowing who you were and where you came from was important, man. You got a lot of that from the 5% Nation and your teachings, the first 120 and all that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you just said it, knowing who you are. So I mean, when you study your lessons, you're learning your history and your rightful place in history, and things of that nature. So that was something that was very informative and helped to mold and shape me as a better person.
Behind the scenes, though, the respect was still there. They chopped it up privately, and Tupac knew Kane wasn't the enemy. But the streets, the media, they wanted blood, they wanted drama, and Suge was more than willing to feed them that image. Kane's neutrality became controversial on its own, and suddenly not choosing sides was treated like betrayal. That's how twisted the industry was. Peace looked suspicious, while chaos looked profitable. What makes this even crazier is how Kane's silence started working against him. Because while he stayed low and focused on the music, Tupac's life turned into a public circus. Shootings, lawsuits, beefs splashed across every headline. The world painted Tupac as the wild outlaw, while Kane, the Brooklyn legend, was almost invisible in the drama. And that contrast gave the media exactly what they wanted. Two rappers with completely different images, easy to spin into a hidden rivalry.
You can't say it's an East Coast, West Coast rivalry, number one. People were starting to say it's an East Coast, West Coast rivalry because it was people that's trying to make money. It was true people trying to make careers. It was people trying to get famous. It was people hustling other people out of money on the East Coast. You don't have no team, you need us. We from the East Coast, pay us X amount of dollars for protection. And some of these idiots was doing it. For us, how we looked at it is, we looked at it as we representing the West Coast, but we representing the ghetto.
KRS-One later admitted that this false narrative robbed hip-hop of something powerful. Imagine if Kane and Tupac had actually dropped a full project together. Two voices blending sharp lyricism, knowledge, and raw passion. Instead, Suga's obsession with control made sure we only got glimpses, whispers, and that one unreleased track buried in the vaults. And the industry ate it up. Every magazine cover, every news report was more valuable with a struggle story than with brotherhood. The machine didn't want to show Tupac respecting Kane or Kane uplifting Tupac. They wanted division. Kane refusing Suga's offer didn't just protect himself, it exposed how far labels were willing to go to pit black artists against each other for profit.
This place, this institution can never side with, come under, understand the exploitation of our culture. Never will you ever see me standing in the environment where our culture is being exploited. Or if you do see me there, the next moment this thing's gonna fall, I'm there to bring this shit down. If you see me in a situation like that, you should say, yo, watch out. Something's about to happen. Turn your cameras on. Something's about to go down. Why is Chris here? Why is he here? Something's about to, he gonna say some shit right now that is gonna,
In the end, the Kane and Tupac connection became one of hip-hop's biggest lost chapters, overshadowed by drama, manipulated by power, and silence before it could grow into something historic. Tupac never had the option to stay neutral. Once he signed with Death Row, he became Suge Knight's golden ticket, the face of the label. That meant the East Coast-West Coast feud wasn't just background noise. It became part of Tupac's entire brand. The magazines, TV shows, radio hosts, they all ran with it, pushing the narrative nonstop. And while Tupac was naturally fiery and outspoken, the truth is a lot of those so-called beefs were cranked up or flat out created by the industry itself. KRS-One peeped the game early. He knew the industry was exploiting black artists, squeezing profit out of their pain, and he refused to play along. He kept calling it out while others got trapped in the machine.
What happened afterwards was a ploy, and it was manufactured by Suge Knight.
When you say ploy, I don't know what a ploy means.
Here's the thing.
It was a game plan. Right. It was a game plan to get him to go
it was
over
a
there.
strategy. It was a strategy.
So if you think about back then, Tupac got convicted of rape, he went to jail. That sucker Kevin Powell did an interview for Vibe with Tupac.
The writer, Kevin Powell.
The
light-skinned guy, I know him.
And Tupac said, Thug Life is dead. He said, I might be killed after this interview, but but I want my truth to be known, right? And he's doing the interview, right? Suge Knight goes to get him out of jail.
Yeah.
When Suge Knight got him out of jail, it's the first time you heard Biggie and Puff did it. That whole East Coast, West Coast shit was manufactured by Suge. Suge did that shit.
But you're not the shooting. You're saying that.
No. I'm talking
after the
about
fact. Okay. Just to be clear.
Blaming of Puff and Big.
And here's the dirty secret. Suge wasn't the only puppet master pulling strings. The 90s music industry had layers of influence. Executives, A&R reps, media outlets, all chasing the same prize, money off conflict. Every fake feud meant higher album sales, juicier magazine covers, and TV ratings through the roof. In some cases, rappers were pressured to throw shots at each other, and when they didn't, the media twisted their words to make it look like they did. Kane and Tupac are the perfect example. Two lyrical giants, both respected, both deep in philosophy and in real life. Mutual respect. But the industry flipped it, made it seem like enemies instead of allies. Suge and his allies knew the fans were hungry for conflict, and they fed it to them on a silver platter. And let's keep it real. It wasn't just Death Row. Bad Boy and other East Coast labels were just as guilty, stirring the pot, cashing in while hip-hop was tearing itself apart. Suge Knight had the loudest presence and the most cutthroat strategy. He ruled with fear, loyalty, and that street-certified reputation that kept artists in check. Tupac, with his explosive energy, became the perfect weapon for Suge's blueprint.
West Coast thing, it just got out of control. Dudes was getting killed, and I felt responsible. But I couldn't stop it.
We ain't mad at the whole spot in New York, we just mad at certain people.
I got this new project coming out along with some other brothers called One Nation, and it's like an East Coast, West Coast collaboration to kill this whole new vibe everybody want to be on about it being a war between the East Coast and the West Coast.
Right.
It's really just a problem with two rappers.
And the East Coast, West Coast thing is something that the journalists and people are making up just to get paid off it so it can drag out and everybody can have albums. They're perpetuating it so it could be drama. When it all go down, don't look at me and Biggie and be like, why is there a big East Coast, West Coast war when you're shooting this to 300 countries, telling them about an East Coast, West Coast war that they would never know exists. So that's where information becomes a problem. We both need to exercise greater restraint.
Meanwhile, Kane played it smarter. He refused to be a pawn. But even saying no to Suge got twisted by the media into a storyline that wasn't real. While the fans obsessed over who dissed who, the industry was playing a much bigger game behind closed doors. Executives were stacking money from contracts, snatching percentages from collabs, and pushing records like chess pieces. The East Coast-West Coast battle didn't just sell music, it sold attention, headlines, and power. Suge and his peers knew controlling perception was just as valuable as controlling the charts, and that's why the Kane-Tupac story matters so much. It exposes the cracks in the narrative we've all been fed. The history books talk about beef and bullets, but behind the curtain, it was execs making bank off chaos while the artists were trapped in the middle of a play they never agreed to star in. Looking back, the so-called East versus West battle wasn't just two coasts clashing, it was a staged production, and Suge was one of the main directors pulling every string. Kane and Tupac didn't fit the script. They respected each other too much, and that's exactly why their real bond almost never gets talked about. So what do you think? Was Kane and Tupac's bond buried on purpose? Do you buy into the idea that Suge Knight and the industry puppet masters cooked up the East Coast versus West Coast conflict just to cash in? Or do you think it was real street tension that spiraled out of control? I want to hear your take, so drop your thoughts down in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear the real story. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. So stay locked in, and I'll see you in the next one.